Hi, welcome to a sunny book nook. Today is a very beautiful spring day, so the lawn outside my room is just filled with like picnickers and people who are just hanging out. So if there's chatter in the background audio, I'm really sorry. But it's beautiful out, which is why I'm wearing my little white baby doll dress. Oh, I think people were asking where I got my mushroom shirt in my last video. I got it from Urban Outfitters and this one as well. So yeah, to answer your question. And this necklace is from Madewell. These earrings are from Madewell as well. This I got from Attic Salt. Okay, anyways, my name is Sunny. I use they, them pronouns. I run a lesbian media commentary podcast called the Lavender Menace, and I read a lot of books. So today I wanted to bring to you a list of recommendations of books by authors of Asian American descent, because obviously it's Asian American Pacific Islander History Month, and based off of things that I have read, this list of books is going to be featuring all Asian American authors. So yeah, I'll try to specify author nationality and ethnicity when I know, but if I don't, just know that these authors are Asian American. This is also going to be part 1 of this video. When I'm back in St. Louis, I'm going to film part 2 for this video, but at the very end of the month in May, and at that point, for people who are participating in like Asian Readathon or whatever, stuff like that, you'll probably already have gone through most of your reading. So yeah, I just have my physical books back at home, and I have a lot of my Asian American authored books back at home, so I'll do another list later this month. Anyways, let's just get into the list of recommendations. I'm gonna be talking about some literary fiction first, and then some mystery thrillers, a poetry book, some science fiction, and then a middle grade. Alright. The first book I want to talk about is Happy Hour by Marlo Granados. I think this author is Filipino, and this book is kind of a blast. It kind of feels like drinking a martini in a classy Manhattan bar, but you don't have any money in your bank account, and the guy who is creepily staring at you from across the room is the one who paid for your drink. That's sort of the vibes that this book gives me, but it's just a really fun romp in New York City over the summer, following these two girls who are best friends, broke but very glam, trying to live their best lives in New York City, selling their clothes to get by, and just going out every night. It is a really, really fun time, but there are also really somewhat like erudite conversations that happen across all of the chatter of this book, and it's just so much really witty dialogue between girls who are really smart and really pretty, and who have this like petty drama that is also really funny and like fun to see play out. I just generally had a really good time reading this, and I would highly recommend this. I would highly recommend the audiobook as well. That was a lot of fun to listen to. And it's just a fun little literary romp for enjoyers of your typical millennial woman type of fiction. It's just not as depressing or dark. And also our main character, whose perspective we're in, I think it's an I voice. She is mixed race and I think Asian, because she has this sort of racial ambiguity in her look. So many people throughout the novel are like, you're so exotic, like where are you from, which is, you know, real. But I thought that was also funny to see play out, just sort of these like implicit racial and gendered dynamics within the party girl scene almost. And our main character also gets sort of tangled up in some tabloid bullshit because she's like kissing this like C-list actor or whatever. I mean, it's fun. If that sounds like something you would enjoy, I would definitely recommend you pick it up. The next book I want to recommend is Brown Girls by Daphne Palasi Andreades. I think this author is Filipino as well. It follows a variety of girls from Queens who are from various diasporic backgrounds, and their experiences from girlhood and childhood all the way to adulthood. It explores themes of female friendship, queerness, coming of age, immigrant-parent relationships, a close community, and success versus not having success and what that means and the hard work of a family. It's a very poetic type of novel, I think, and if you're into sort of diaspora poetry type stuff, I think you would really enjoy this. The writing is pretty solid. I think it's a debut novel, and yeah, I enjoyed it, and I think that if you are the kind of person who enjoys late night conversations with your friends who are also from immigrant, second generation, first generation backgrounds about your relationships to your mothers, this is the type of book for you. The next book I want to recommend is also about two Asian girls, and one of them is partially in New York City at some point in the story, so interesting theme there. And that is Fiona and Jane by Jean Chen Ho. One is Taiwanese, I think, and the other is Korean, and they have really complicated relationships to their parents, whether that be their dad is not in the picture or their mom has expectations for them. And anyway, these two girls are friends as girls, and then as they get older, they kind of go their separate ways, but then they end up back in their hometown together, and they sort of cross paths again. They're in and out of each other's lives. There are periods at which we don't see them really interact at all, but we do see these alternating chapters of really deep looks at their lives and what they look like. One of them is going through a really tough breakup that has to do with cheating. One of them is dealing with this crazy girl that she's dating. And yeah, it's a really it's a really moving novel that I think a lot of people will connect to. And the writing style is somewhat emotionally removed, but yeah, I mean, I think that the voice of each of the characters, or the voice of these alternating chapters, aren't that differentiated from each other, because I don't really think that's the point. This book feels like helping your old friend move out of her house, and while y'all are moving out, y'all sort of reminisce on the whack shit y'all got up to as kids. I think those are the vibes of this book. And now for the mystery thriller, I want to recommend Dial A for Aunties, and also the sequel, which I finished reading this morning, and it made me cackle like a maniac. It is so funny. This series follows our main character, who is this Indo-Chinese girl, young woman, and she's a couple years out of college. She's a wedding photographer, and she works with her mom and her mom's three sisters, so the aunts, in their family wedding business, essentially. And in the first book, she goes on this blind date set up by her mom, and she accidentally kills the guy after he attempts to sexually assault her, and then they have to bury the body, but they're literally shooting a wedding the next day. So a lot of shit is happening. It's fucking hilarious, and the dynamic of the family, of all these women being so close to each other, but each of them having their own thing, and this interfamily rivalry, and our main character not trying to offend her aunt's feelings, but they are also fucking ridiculous. They do the wildest shit, and they say just the funniest things because they're just so unself-aware, and it has to do with Indo-Chinese culture and the cultural differences between her being born and raised in the US versus her family, who is still entrenched in those traditions. They're just these old Chinese ladies, and they're just so fucking funny, okay? And the shit that they get up to is insane. And there's also a reconnecting sort of romantic relationship at the center of the first book, and in the second book it's a wedding, so shit goes down. But it's a really, really fun series, and it feels like having dinner with your extended Asian family, and everyone keeps saying the most inappropriate things in front of someone that you really want to impress, but you don't want to hurt your family's feelings, so you just cringe, but you still love them because they will help you through anything. And yeah, that's at the core of this series, I think, and it's really fucking adorable to read about, but also kind of infuriating because our main character is somewhat annoying in my opinion. But if you can put up with that, and if you don't find her annoying, I think this will be a fun romp for you. Another mystery series, is Taipei Night Market by Ed Lin, who's a Taiwanese American author, and this is all set in Taipei, and it's following this guy who helps run a food market at the night food market stands that are well known in Taiwan as like a tourist place to go, and also just a place to go in general for good food. So he runs like a meat kebab thing stand, and he gets roped into these kidnappings, murders, heists, political uprising situations across the course of this series. And he also is in a relationship with someone who is, I think, a graduate student or something, and there's like mafia connections and like the boss gang members, and then he's just trying to get through it all. It's really fun, but it's also kind of a bit more gritty and not as like funny, I suppose. And yeah, I like it. I think our main character is just somewhat like harangued, and like, he's just trying to get through this shit, and he's dealing with a lot of like extended family, again, a major theme I think in like Asian American fiction. He like grew up in the US, I believe, and went to college in the US, I'm pretty sure, but now he's like helping run his family night market in Taiwan because his parents passed away and left it to him. It is a really solid adult literary mystery fiction, I think. I think there are like thriller elements to it, but it's just not like scary or like on the edge of your seat. It's more like this suspense of not really knowing what's going on, but it's more about like the day-to-day things of trying to get through stuff, and it's not that melodramatic, I guess. So the tone is a bit more light, and I would say that this book feels like walking down the busy Taipei night market street, looking at all these vendors that are trying to get your attention and get your money, and then you see something kind of whack happen in the middle of the street that no one else seems to be paying attention to. I feel like that's what this book feels like, with all the lanterns, and it's and like the air and the noise and the chatter, the various tourists, the old money and the new money, and the working class people and the rich Americans. It's a fun time. Okay, so the poetry collection I want to recommend is Soft Science by Franny Choi, and this is also a good sort of transition into my science fiction category of recommendations as well, because this is a poetry collection based on the character Kyoko in Ex Machina, which is a movie from 2016 or something like that. I don't remember. But in Ex Machina, we are seeing these like clone AI robot women, and one of them is an Asian woman who can't speak, who hasn't been given the technological sort of capability to be able to speak. And in Soft Science, Franny Choi as a poet sort of loosely draws on that, as well as other, just like the general themes of being a queer East Asian woman and the techno-orientalism of that diasporic experience. And it is really beautiful and very smart, I think. And the melding of science fiction and poetry and the exploration of her Korean American identity and her gender and sex and racial identities sort of as explored through these poems, it's really beautiful, and I would definitely recommend this poetry collection if you are someone who, even if you don't like poetry, I think this is something that you could really sink your teeth into, because it's kind of hefty. I would say that this book reminds me of that first feeling that you get when you are an East Asian misogyny like affected person, and you start having that awakening of the way that people view you as an extension of technology and something to be used, something that is silent and a tool and exists for the purpose of production, I guess. I think these poems touch on that feeling, and that feeling of realizing you're being fetishized. Yeah, that's what this poetry collection feels like to me. The next book I want to recommend is Machine Hood by S.B. Divya. This author, I think, was born in India and moved to the US when she was 5. And this book is phenomenal. It follows a few different characters around the world, and it's set in a future in which people have these sort of like VR things they put on their heads to be able to see, like, to be able to interact with the world at large, I guess, and for their jobs and stuff. The gig economy is like a major theme here. And there's also this alien sort of issue going on, and there's also like a clean air shortage and issue in which you can't really like go out because it's unsafe at a lot of points. It is also following a perspective of like these battalion groups and like these militia groups who are being paid to like fight people, and also the way that all of these different perspectives sort of collide around that political, technological, and social religious issue of this group of people in space making demands on the world and how the world is responding to it. It is a really brilliant sci-fi novel, I think, and it feels like Silicon Valley meets Star Wars meets a hardworking mom who is trying to take care of her family as well as make enough money to survive and be safe. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book and I would definitely recommend it. The next science fiction book I want to talk about is more of a fantasy-ish, and it's more young adult, and it's called Phoenix Extravagant by Yoon-Ha Lee. This is a sapphic techno art fantasy Asian country that is analogous to Korea under the Japanese occupation. It's about this girl who wants to work for the emperor as an artist because she's a very skilled visual artist and painter, but her sister does not want her sister whom she lives with does not want her to work for the emperor because it would be sort of traitorous to their people, because the empire is massacring their people and also oppressing them in their own country and outside in suppressing rebellion and stuff. So her older sister is very much like, that's immoral, don't do that, but our main character is like, no, like, you, older sister, are struggling so hard to survive, and I need to help out this family. I have a debt and a duty to do so. And so she tries out to be the emperor's, like, artist, but she doesn't get it. And then her sister kicks her out after she finds out. And when she gets kicked out, she's looking around, and then a government official sees her, recognizes her, and has her work this sort of contract inside the castle walls in the dungeon for this piece of technology that involves a dragon, and she has to do artistic engineering tasks for the sake of like the empire, and she's not allowed to like leave the dungeon or like the castle, and she doesn't know whether her family like knows whether she's okay or not. But, of course, the government is paying her a lot of money to be able to do this. She develops a sort of relationship with the dragon, which is sort of both a technological and fantastical entity. And in her work, she ends up sort of getting into this relationship with her guard, who is a woman. So that's fun. But yeah, it's a really, really fun and solid YA fantasy sci-fi with a sprinkle of romance and a lot of political intrigue, really interesting world building and like rebellion politics and art as the center of it. I would say that this book feels like assembling a Lego dragon, but like on a mega scale, I guess. My final book recommendation is a really cute middle grade called Hello Universe by Erin Entrada Kelly, which follows this, I think, half Filipino boy. This girl who is this like really confident girl who's new to class, and they end up becoming friends and they have to save someone. We follow the bully's perspective as well, and they're all like 12 years old. It's really cute if you want a wholesome little middle grade with themes of belonging and family and friendship and confidence and finding yourself and finding strength in yourself and your identity. Definitely pick this up. This book feels like playing in the neighborhood as a little kid and running into the woods and hearing something kind of scary, but knowing that you can trek forward because you're with your friends. those are all of my Asian American book recommendations, books that are written by Asian American authors. Let me know if you've read any of these or if you plan on reading any of these. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, you know, all that bullshit. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye!